everyone. Welcome to Thanks for Sharing. I'm your host, Jackie Pack. On today's episode, I have with me a longish time friend and colleague, Adam Nisenson, who is also an LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapy, and also a CSAT. And Adam has been working hard. When did we meet for coffee? A year ago, and you told me about the book that you were writing and about
Yeah, working on it a couple of years. Yeah, that was about a
Okay.
year ago. We had
Yeah,
that combo.
yeah. So Adam has written a book talking about men's betrayal trauma. Hold it up. There you go.
There you
A
go. Can you
Man's
read it?
Guide to Partner Betrayal. I can't read the subtitle, but A Man's Guide to Partner Betrayal. And I had invited him on a while ago, I think,
Yeah.
to talk about your book and talk about your experience, where you're headed with the work that you're doing. I know we had been talking and you said that you are doing men's workshops in the evening around this issue
Yeah.
of experience betrayal.
Thanks for having me. We've known each other a good long time, and I'll just share with everyone, you were my supervisor and I worked with you for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the things I learned from you. So thanks. You're part of what helped make this all possible, right? I
Good.
mean,
Yeah.
it's always the people, right? The shoulders we stand on, I like to
Mm-hmm.
say. So yeah, so it's great to be here. I guess I could just start talking about the book,
Yeah.
if
Do
that
that.
works. So the short story is about, I would have to do the math, but let's just say about 12, 13 years ago, my now ex-wife cheated on me. And back then, I had no support, Jackie. We went to therapy a little bit, actually went to see a CSAT, and I felt totally, in that experience, I kind of felt blindsided. I felt like it wasn't safe for me. I didn't have support. They didn't understand what I was going through. And in some ways, I felt like they were making it like it was my fault.
Mm.
And with that said, yes, it takes two to tango, but there's nothing anyone I think can ever do that gives your partner permission to go outside a committed relationship or a marriage. And I think even if you cheated on your partner, that doesn't give them permission to do that either. And we can dig into that later if you
Yeah.
want to. But yeah, so from that, and then through my therapy work, my therapy practice, I only work with men, and a lot of the men I work with struggle with sex addiction, sexual compulsivity, whatever we want to call it. And what I started discovering is like 6 months, a year or so down the road, these men started sharing betrayals with me that they never got to process. They never got to look at what it cost them and how it was kind of showing up in their lives currently. And that was just kind of like the flag, like, hey, like there's something here. And also through my own work, I felt like I did all my work. I think a lot of us, I'm done, right? And maybe I really wasn't. I don't know if I'm ever going to be done, but it kind of all those things conspired and inspired me to write this book. Because the other part, what was crazy is I was doing a lot of Googling and looking for books and things around this, and there was nothing really out there in the male perspective. So I thought, why not me? So that's how I got here. That's how we're here right now. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. It doesn't surprise me when you and your ex-wife were looking for resources, looking for therapists, that was a struggle. We have known that is a gap in services
Yeah.
and a gap in resources. And we used to say there's a gap for female sex and love addicts and male partners. I think there's more resources now for female sex and love addicts than I would guess for male partners.
Yeah, probably.
And one of the things that I noticed when I have worked with a few men who experience betrayal trauma, and one of the things I noticed, I wouldn't say that females go into their relationship, their primary relationship, thinking he's going to cheat. But I do think females in general are raised with this idea that men want sex. It's just so common that when it does happen, that doesn't diminish the trauma they experience or the blind side that they experience. But I there is a difference when men experience it, because I don't think they are raised with that messaging or some of those expectations that or fears that they hope never happens. Women hope they never happen. Men are, it's not even on their radar sometimes, I think.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Some of this work, or a lot of this work, there are some stereotypes we do have to look at, and there's some truths to stereotypes. And I like how you said it. I think it can work both ways. What I notice from most men in this process is they think, well, the man's the one that's supposed to be okay, not okay, but okay to cheat, right? Not the woman, right? And so you're right. There's those social expectations, right, that come with it, and the hierarchy and what it means to be a man. And so, yeah, most all the guys I work with, I mean, myself too, I was never on my radar that I was
Mm-hmm.
going to be cheated on. Like, how can that happen, right, to a guy? And the other part, I think it's a lot more common today. You hear it in the media and the news more. Of course, recently we had the whole Coldplay concert thing
Mm-hmm.
happen. But even like I watch TV and TV shows, men being betrayed is not really something we see much at all, or if we do, it's super minimized, and those characters just kind of move on, or they go get even, if you will. There is a show, I don't know if you saw the show, I think was it called Neighbors and Friends with John Hamm. He actually plays a betrayed husband and navigating the circle of
Mm-hmm.
friends and their kids, and he's still in it, and his wife cheated with his best friend, which you and I both hear those stories all the
Yes,
time,
we
right,
do.
in our work. And so that's actually the most recent and probably one of the better TV series I've seen, where they're actually showing what this might look like.
Okay.
It's not real life though, but yeah, you're right though. For men, it's not. I know I got on a tangent there, but for men, it's not expected, right? It's just not on the radar. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for
Yes,
sure.
I know you talk about the difference in the stigma and the shame that men experience, and I think a lot of that is because it's not on their radar. So talk a little bit about the stigma and the shame that men experience.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to, I see it in my work a lot, and I'm going to guess you do too, Jackie, is where men struggle just with vulnerability, or expressing their feelings, or even holding what I would say healthy boundaries. And a lot of those tendencies are how men are taught, right? That's the social expectations, or even just the way we're raised. I wouldn't say I was raised where I didn't know how to feel, but I was definitely raised where, men, buck up, don't cry, tough it out. And so that's kind of ingrained in us. And, I think the more men learn to be vulnerable, the more men learn to share their truths, to cry. I tell my guys I work with all the time that I think the bravest man in the room is the one that's willing to cry, willing to show his emotions, willing to be raw and real. And so I think that's the one part of the social expectations. And then, as you were saying earlier, back when I went through my experience, and I think it's changing today, but hopefully there's going to be more resources. There's going to be places where men can feel safe to explore what the betrayal looks like. And I tell my guys all the time, like, this is painful. This is also going to be one of the greatest moments in your life, where you're going to actually get to learn who you are, show up as a man, show up as a human, and change the perception on how the world sees you. And if you have kids, your children too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One of the things I think too is just seeing how they change when they're doing their own work, and there is some healing there, and there is an ability to be vulnerable. How they show up as a parent changes.
Big difference.
Yeah, big
Yeah,
difference.
that's one of for me, when I watch a man go through this and watch them evolve actually into what I want to say a complete human,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing how their interaction is, with their children, even with friends and fellow employees, et cetera, et cetera. It shifts everything if you do
Mm-hmm.
the work, if you
Yeah,
don't run from it.
right, right. Absolutely. And I tell partners that I work with, it will be different than how you parent. It will. And that's okay. Your kids
Yeah.
need both of you to parent, and him trying to do it the way you want him to do it, that's not going to work. That's setting
Nope.
him up to fail. He has to figure out how he expresses parenting from that authentic self.
I agree.
So let's jump into, how do you define, or what is male betrayal trauma, or masculine betrayal trauma, I think is what you call it.
Yeah, I coined it as masculine betrayal trauma. In basically what I came up with is men, back to stereotypes, men, we like to have a plan. I want to have, what's my day look like? I want to have an outline. It's interesting, right? I always joke, like, we struggle asking for directions, but we want directions. We want that kind of structure. And so masculine betrayal trauma, I created 7 stages as I was working with men, what I noticed they were going through. One important thing, and in the book, I have it right in my 7 stages, but nothing in this work is linear, right? We bounce around, right? I can think I'm healed and I'm doing great, and all of a sudden my anger comes back or my projection comes back, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was finished being angry. So none of it's linear, right? And so I think, one of the most important stages is the first one, and that's the initial shock and the ego injury. And one of the things, and I'm sure women have an ego too, as a man, I know most of us, we have big egos. And when we're betrayed, I think that ego is one of the first things that goes. And I think that's one of the hardest things the men I work with struggle with. Because for a man, his ego, that's his sense of self. That's how he's seen in the world. That's how he presents himself. That's also the story he tells himself,
Mm-hmm.
or the lies he tells himself on who he is and how he shows up. And what I see, I call it the ego trap, is men often will get trapped in that ego part where they have to maintain this persona. And when you do that, you don't get to go into all the other stages and all the other pain and the potential to heal. You just mask it. And so many guys I work with, they'll tell me the first thing I thought of was, I'll fix this. I remember when my ex told me, the first thing, Jackie, I said to her, and like looking back, it's kind of cringy, but I said, "Oh, I wonder what my part is." But that was like the first thing I said. As the shock went down, that was what came out of my mouth. And looking back, it makes sense that I would have said that. Most of the guys I work with say stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's also I don't know if it's different than female partners, but I think that's an insightful first question, probably more
Sure.
appropriate later in the work.
Yeah, totally. Right. I should have just sat in the pain, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, but
or wondered.
it also makes sense with men wanting to fix, that
Yeah,
that would be a
totally.
common response. Okay, what is my part? I can control that. I'll get a plan. I'll get a schedule for that. I'll have my,
Yeah,
8
totally.
steps and I'm good.
Yeah, I got this. We'll make
Mm-hmm.
this happen. We'll work it out, right?
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah. So you want me to go through more stages, or
yeah,
I can
yeah.
tell?
How long would you say? Because I would think, we know that for most people, males and females, ego is protective.
Yeah,
It's protective, and I would imagine that feels very scary to let it go, or ask it to step aside so that you can go
yeah,
deeper into the pain and the shame and all of that.
yeah. What I see in this work is that ego trap, if you will, that'll bounce around through all of this work, right? It's not like you do it and you're done kind of thing. It'll pop up when you don't expect it, and it's a great sign. I got more work to do, or there's something I'm not being honest with myself about,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just we go into that story. The other part of this work, that the stages actually I find really interesting, are when I work with guys around anger and projection, and then the jealousy, the competitiveness. Again, more ingrained kind of masculine behaviors, if you will. Um, I don't know if you see, I'm sure you see this a lot, Jackie, but I've learned through the years, men do not understand the idea of anger. And if I say, well, let's look at some healthy anger, they think that sounds like a foreign language, putting the word healthy with anger,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's kind of what I think this work is. It's allowing men to be angry, because then back to social stigma, right? We're told men can't be angry and you can't do those things, and that's scary, right? And you have to fit into a box, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And if men don't get to let the anger out, women too, right? If you don't, like, when you feel rage, what do? You can't stuff rage, right? It stays in you. It builds up. And so there's so many healthy ways of letting rage out. I tell men, like, yell into a pillow, beat a pillow. I bought some cheap plates at Target, and I wrote on Sharpie all my anger, and I have a brick wall back by my house, and I broke them. And as I was breaking them, I was picturing myself releasing all of that anger, because the anger is just toxic, right? All
Mm-hmm.
that rage. So healthy anger is something that I find really important to work with men on. And then the other thing, which I didn't realize I did this until I was writing my book, and in most of the chapters, I have a section that's my story. And that was kind of hard to write, because I had to be, well, I didn't have to, but I chose to be brutally honest, because I think that was important. And the one thing that really caught me off guard was the competitiveness and jealousy. And I realized how much on my journey, man, that guy, I gave him so much free rent in my head.
Mm.
And also the other part was, I learned, also just being a therapist later, that by doing that, I was robbing myself of the chance to heal. And I was using very limited resources of energy in that process to not only help myself heal, but the energy should have been put on myself and my wife at the time, and what that looks like. So I see a lot of men, they struggle with the jealousy and the competitiveness. And those things actually add to deep, deep intrusive thoughts, which I didn't even get into in the book, right? There's this, I don't know, there's probably another 5 or 6 books I can write on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, those I would say are some of the biggest stages that we go
Yeah.
through. I think we all go through.
Yeah. I think it doesn't surprise me that competitiveness and jealousy is something that you were able to identify in your own story, and that eventually with the men that you're working with, that comes up and they hit that
Yeah.
layer of work. Yeah. One of the questions I had when you were talking about that, because I get men who will say, I would rather get vulnerable with a female than a man. Because of that stigma, men don't go deep, men don't show their emotions. We,
Yeah.
do the bro hug, we go to a basketball game, something like that. And I will always say, I don't think it will fully heal until men know in your life, and men who
Yeah.
can go there with you. There is part of this that is a male betrayal, a betrayal from another male, right? As much as there is the female.
True. Yeah. 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 I mean, you hit on another big point. I think that men that are going through this, they navigate this pain alone. Like, so many guys I know, no one else knows. I didn't, like, my brother and one of my best friends, they didn't know till about 8 years later,
Wow.
right?
That's
I held it.
that's a long time to hold that in.
I I know. And I had a therapist at the time that I found later on, and I had one other friend that knew, and he was studying to be a psychologist, so he was also kind of safe in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the other thing, is I think men, we struggle with that vulnerability. And I think what happens a lot, I've had guys tell me this, is they'll tell their buddy, and their buddy will be like, they'll dismiss it, that's no big deal, or get over it, or they'll tell them, well, you should go have an affair, you get a hall pass too, right? Like, I think men, we don't have necessarily the tools to listen and just to have empathy. And so for any of the guys out there listening, I'm going to tell you, if you have a buddy that's going through this, that's your job. Is just to let them know you love them and let them know they're going to be okay and ask them for what they need. They don't need advice and they don't need to be told to go do something that's maybe out of their core values to level the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a strong support system I think is super important. And that's like you mentioned in the beginning, I'm doing some men betrayal groups. And the biggest takeaway, like I know you do groups. I've done groups with you. You ever wish like you could maybe record or take a picture of these guys, like the first group, the first time they meet each other, and then 3 or 4 weeks down the road, see how they change, how they soften, how they're more vulnerable, how they're more playful and connected and trusting and that's the deal in this work. If you don't have a healthy brotherhood, it's super hard to do this alone, period.
Yeah. Well, I remember too, because I mean, you mentioned that you and I used to facilitate a group together, a men's group. And
Um,
I have a lot of positive memories from that group. That was one of the groups. You and I had been running it probably a year before COVID hit, and we had to transition it from in person to online.
yeah,
And I wondered what would happen as we shifted it from in person to online. And could they keep that same level of vulnerability and humor and connectedness in an online format that we had? I mean, initially we had to work to get them to do that in person.
right.
And I was very pleasantly surprised that they just
They
picked up
did
where
it.
we left off online.
You know,
And I wouldn't say that we lost the value of that in that
I agree.
with that particular group of men. Um, and I always felt privileged. I would talk about men's group with Jackie because I was the lone female in the group. But I always felt privileged to listen and participate, often just observe and listen and feel
Yeah,
the work that was going on with this group of men. Very powerful.
yeah. Man, when men decide they don't have to appear strong, that they can be vulnerable, man, it is such a beautiful thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's I often think, man, if the world we had more groups and more men doing that, what would we be like? What would society be like? And what we would we be teaching our sons, right? Like what would they be seeing and what would be modeled for them? That's a whole
Yeah.
nother podcast, Jackie.
I think and wonder that all the time. And I
I do too.
think there would be a lot of positive changes that we could see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So we've kind of hit on this, but is there anything else you want to say about the isolation that men experience with this?
I mean, it's devastating, right? I see a lot of times I see men falling into unhealthy patterns, compulsivities. See a lot of men, they overeat, maybe they get into porn, they just become angry, they shut down, workaholic. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big
Mm-hmm.
thing. A lot of people, I think I got way into my work, right? And that was because I didn't have to think about anything else. And I could do it for 10, 12 hours a day, right? I can
Mm-hmm.
extend that. And so, yeah, I see that. I see that, men that don't do this work don't get to challenge the traditional views of masculinity. Because there's so many more ways today of being masculine that I think are
Mm-hmm.
healthier, wiser, and braver.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I
And I
think there's
do
a lot
think
of,
some of the messaging as a society, I will say, as a collective, not you and I, but that as society puts out to men is a betrayal in and of itself.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, look, I was asked once if I would do this again, like go through my
Mm.
betrayal. And I thought that was a really interesting question. The first time it was like a year ago, or no, it was
Okay.
less than a year ago. But I remember I took this deep breath and I said yes. And the reason yes is because it woke me up. It shook me. It made me I think definitely a better man, a better friend. I'm remarried. I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely a better husband. Um, yeah, I mean, I think life is about those experiences and those kind of the pain, if you will. There's pain
Hmm.
in life, right? And it's what do I do with it? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's
I think
benefits to
there is
this.
some, and you have this in one of your 7 stages for men healing from partner betrayal. But I think oftentimes, in order to fully embrace who we are in that moment, it means we have to reckon and accept what we've had to go through. Maybe we didn't choose it, but excuse me, but we allow it to be part of our story, who we are from that.
One of my favorite sayings is change is inevitable, growth is optional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this betrayal definitely gives you that choice right
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
you know?
You can
Yeah,
be
for sure.
angry, isolated, stuck, all that other stuff.
Yeah,
Or there's another option. Don't stay
yeah,
isolated. Look for
yeah,
support systems,
yeah. Look for the
resources.
growth.
Hmm.
Look, what do you get to learn, you
Yeah.
know? And the other thing too that I don't want to be lost on all this is just because you get betrayed because your partner cheats on you, that doesn't mean you can't reconcile. Often I have
Hmm.
people think I'm only preaching you have to end a relationship. And actually, no, some of the men I work with that are reconciling, that are working through the intrusive thoughts, that are doing their work, and their partners doing the work
Hmm.
are discovering back to vulnerability and connection. And a lot of them will come to me later and they'll let me know, like, yeah, I watched my dad cheat, or this happened, or my mom had been married 3 times, right? And so
Hmm.
they get to reinvent the narrative of what a marriage and what commitment means. And the people that do the work, man, I see some beautiful, amazing, strong, healthy relationships that grow from all this work, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah. I think those are some key elements. Both people are working, both people are involved in a process of individual examination.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes it does work and they have a stronger relationship, and other times it doesn't. But, we can also have healthier divorces and healthier after divorce, post divorce.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I'll even tell people, like, even if it's not going to work, the marriage, the relationship, do the work. Because
Hmm.
especially if you have children, you're going to be connected to that person for a
Hmm.
long time. And look, even if you try to have a healthy relationship with your now ex, that also still doesn't always work. And you
Hmm.
just do you do your side of the street, right? And I always tell guys, like, I want you to be able to look at your children in the face and say, I'm showing up. I did the best I can do, right? Yes, I
Hmm.
made mistakes, right? You do that, then you teach them differently than you were taught, what you
Hmm.
witnessed your parents doing, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is another piece of changing the mold that you had inherited, that your kids inherit.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. So let's talk about if a man initially is trying to suppress the emotions, not tell people, trying to keep the ego that they had constructed and that is
Yeah,
protecting them, keep that functioning, keep that so that nobody is looking behind the ego to see what's actually happening. How do they get to that place then of saying, okay, maybe there's other people. Maybe I can get help. Maybe I
yeah.
don't have to do it alone. What is that process?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Obviously, I mean, I think everyone going through this needs to, right, see a therapist or betrayal trauma coach, someone that specializes. And one of the things I love about being a CSAT, I think we're probably the only kind of therapy certification that actually has training in
Mm-hmm.
betrayal work, right? And so find someone that understands this, that has some modalities, maybe even someone that has experience being
Mm-hmm.
betrayed, right? I think that's super important. I would say stay away from Reddit. So many guys that so toxic. And I have guys come to me and tell me they're on these different forums and they're just bashing women and stuff like that, bashing their partners, no matter the sex. And that to me is just like, that's toxic. That'll keep you stuck,
Yeah, that's
right?
not healthy anger.
Yeah, no, that's nothing good is ever going to happen, I think, on Reddit,
Right.
right? Um, I think when you find a person or support, even support groups, there's tons of therapists out there that have groups and do different groups. There's couples retreats. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. But if you have sharing and connection, you're going to feel safer. You're going to feel better. I know on my journey, I felt like no one else was going through what I was going through. No one else would understand. And that's just a lie. So the more connection you have, the less you isolate, the more you find healthy resources. There's plenty of books out there, my
Hmm.
book included, right? But I think that's how you get through it. And that's how you can start to heal and start to have the rebirth or the new beginning, which is my last stage, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think it's awesome because when we were working together, you were working adjacent to your story. You're a CSAT, so
Yeah.
and I don't think you. I mean, we did groups together. I thought you did good work there, but it is also nice to see you be able to branch off and really develop your niche that is about your story and to
Yeah.
provide
Thanks.
resources for men who are similar to you and that they experience partner betrayal and lost themselves for a while.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that. I have some guys I've worked with that the betrayal was 10 years. I have a guy that's 40 years ago.
Wow.
I know, and they never did the work. And just my heart hurts because they did what I'll just move on.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
pretend it, right? Back to that story. And yeah, do the work, guys. And it's not as hard as you think. It's painful, but it's not as
Hmm.
hard as you think once you start to crack into it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, the betrayal is painful. The work is painful. One of them actually provides something that's productive and
Totally.
healthier, right? That leads to connection and understanding and some grace for ourselves and others as we're moving on that healing journey. And the other one doesn't really. It still is about disconnecting from self.
Staying stuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
a
would
lot of
agree.
pain and resentment to hold on to for a long time.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how you navigate that or how like all those little intrusive thoughts or ouches or similar, right? Like through the years or
Uh-huh.
I think you have to become a little numb, disconnected to do that and to go through
Yeah.
that for sure. But
Yeah, I think so. Because we know that the emotions there, whether you disconnect from them or not, they take up that space in your body.
totally. Yeah. I I was talking about earlier, it's like I thought I was done when I wrote the book. I still realized there was more. And I hate to admit, but I know there's still a little more. There's little pieces, little ouches still inside me
Hmm.
somewhere. And like you were saying, I get to work on both sides of the fence, right? I work
Hmm.
with men that cheat, and then I work with men who have been cheated. And it's impossible for me not to sometimes feel that, to get triggered or to feel wow, or I can feel old feelings sometimes. And
Hmm.
um that sucks, but it's also kind of interesting. And sometimes I share that with a client, and just so they don't feel like they're crazy. And in some ways it helps release it for me too,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well, and it
and, and
it
it,
still provides that honest connection with them.
yeah, yeah, which I think that's the other part. Like I think bringing it back to some of the beginning of our conversation, I think that's where men also like men don't always feel safe because they don't always feel like someone else will understand them, right? And
Hmm.
so, any therapist out there, if you have that experience and you're working with a man like that, I think it's important to disclose some things. It's one thing to say, I understand, but do you really understand? Because unless you've been through betrayal, I don't know if anyone can really understand what it feels like
Hmm.
and what it means and does to you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So let's talk about reclaiming self-worth after going through partner betrayal for men.
Yeah. Yeah. It circles back to everything we've been saying. If I think about my own journey, it was it was finding my confidence again. It was finding like, who am I really? I actually, through that process, and I have a lot of clients that experience this, but we learn that that facade, that ego isn't really who I am or what I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay, right? And so it's discovering, what are my values and what are my passions? What's my truth, my authentic self, that I think so many men, we hide behind, right? And and it's just being in my emotions. I am not afraid of my emotions anymore. I know so many of the guys I work with, they actually are excited that they get to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them realize they didn't feel most of their lives. And that's so sad to me. So it's about all those things. And then it's about hope and growth. And like my story, I had so many friends of mine that thought I would never get married again, right? And I did. And I think part of that is you do the work, and what you put out there to the universe, if you will, I think will start to show up again. And I met a partner who has some similar stories, and we're wired the same. And it feels good to trust again. And it feels good to believe that you could be worthy of love and you could be adored, because I think that is part of the human experience. And yeah, betrayal opens you up for that, opens you to feel again in a
Mm-hmm.
bigger way than you'd ever imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I know also when we were working together, I would have clients, both male and females, who would see you in the lobby or, whatever, you were at the office. So they would see you, and a lot of them would project something. Like if I was working with a betrayed male, he's like, well, Adam probably never experienced, like a man like Adam would never experience.
Yeah, I
And
get that.
I would say, I don't know, you might be surprised, or you never know. I don't know that there is a look that we say, oh, yes, they would be betrayed,
Yeah.
or, there's so much that we miss on the surface. Well, if your partner's attractive, then they wouldn't betray you. And then we find out that's not
None
true.
of
That's not
none of
real.
that matters. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean, I work with some crazy successful men and wealth. I've had a couple guys that are fairly well known, and being betrayed does not discriminate. It
Mm-hmm.
happens, it can happen to anyone. And I think it happens to more people than we know. And that's another part of this. I don't know, Jackie, if you've seen, there's a lot more research coming out, and they're starting to believe that as many men as women get cheated on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not reported, right? That the guy that thinks he has to have this persona, it has to be a certain way, he can't share that. He has to hunker down, right? Or he'll just get the divorce and move on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah,
not talk
the
about
tr
it, like not
yeah,
advertise that that was part of the divorce.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
totally. Yeah. Betrayal does not care who you are, what you look like, how
Mm-hmm.
much hair you have, the car you drive. None of those things matter. It happens to almost everyone in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think, I mean, we know that the numbers, I think there's an underreporting for females, not females who've been betrayed, but females who betray.
Betray,
And
yeah.
it's more commonly reported men who betray. Some of those stats, people working in the field will say the reality is they are very closely, numbers are actually very close. And even now, the numbers aren't totally skewed. I think I looked it up, and it's like 6 to 10%. This is just in the US population of men report having compulsive sexual behavior disorder, and it is 4 to 7 estimated for women.
I've heard, I don't know, something like 30% of women get cheated on in some capacity, and percent for men, right? But I think the things I've been seeing and hearing, it's a lot closer also. But
Yeah.
even if you even that for if you take 18%, that's still, that has to be millions of
Right.
people. And
Mm-hmm.
then think about all those men that have people in their lives, right? The trickle down theory, if you will, is huge in this
Mm-hmm.
work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Which makes it a
it's,
lot more likely that for the people listening to this, they know somebody, or they know somebody who knows
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I'm as I started coming forward and doing this, and the book came out in January, I've had a couple friends come to me and tell me, you didn't know this, but and some of them like, and I had a feeling, but okay, right? And thank you. And I'm here,
Hmm.
let's talk, right? But yeah, I think it's gonna be less, taboo as we go. And that's part of my mission, if you will, is to have the conversation, right? Men get cheated on too. That's my little
Hmm.
tagline, right? And
Yeah.
I think the more we all do that, and therapists do that, and the media changes how they present the issue,
Hmm.
I think will make it safer for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think it's important to clarify that men get cheated on, and those men have not cheated. I think a lot of times
Yes.
we think it is in
No,
retaliation or something like that. And we're talking about men who have not cheated and then find that they were cheated on.
Jackie, I work with a lot of guys in this arena, and I could probably count on one hand how
Mm-hmm.
many have. It was,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a good
Both
point.
hands. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hardly ever is it both and for sure in
Mm-hmm.
this work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say a lot of times we should have a little more hope for men. Like they are half the population. Let's like
Yeah.
look at them in a little bit better light and
Yeah.
have a higher bar because I think a lot of them can scale the high bar.
Well, yeah. And I think most, again, what we see in the media is we talk about toxic masculinity
Mm-hmm.
stuff. We don't talk about the men that are feeling and healing and doing the work or showing up different. That
Mm-hmm.
never gets as much, publicity, if you will, as the other stuff. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, you need to start working on that next
I'm
too.
trying. I'm trying. If you know I'm trying to get an article. I'm writing all this stuff. I want to get, someone needs to write a story about this. Come on, people. Let's go.
Yeah.
Call me.
Right.
Call us. Let's do
Yes.
this.
Right. Yeah. I think that should be
Please.
getting, I mean, it might not be so clickbaitish. Man does his work, embraces his feelings and vulnerabilities, and becomes a
Yeah.
better father and husband, right? That might not
Yeah.
get as many clickbait. It might.
I was just, actually, I was talking to Michelle Mays, right?
Hmm.
And she's huge publicity and all the stuff she does. And I was telling her, why does no one want to talk to me, right? And she basically kind of said, that's scary. Like people don't want that, and that's not exciting, right? And they want, it's not the story, although that should be one of the
Hmm.
stories for sure.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see. It's gonna happen, Jackie.
It
I'm
will
working it.
happen.
I'm
You keep
trying.
putting it out there. You keep
I'm
talking about
trying.
it. You work with more men. At some point, it's going to hit that
Someone will.
threshold that it tips over, right?
Yeah, that's
Starts
the
moving
idea,
in
the
that
tipping
way.
point.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope so. I
Yeah.
mean, men need to know, they're okay. Men need to know there's resources. Men need to know they're not crazy for feeling what they're feeling.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, they just need to know they're not alone.
Right. And also that it may not be their fault that they were cheated on, that they were betrayed. So I think,
A
like I said, a lot of
100%.
people would be like, well, what did I do? It must be my fault.
Yeah,
And some of that is putting it back in their control.
yeah. I
I
mean,
think
I
it's harder to wrestle with. This may not be about me being inadequate.
Yeah, I think that's a big part that men will spiral into that. I like to say the self-flogging. At the same time, I will tell you in my book at the end, I have a chapter about kind of like what's my part. And my part isn't about I did things that gave my partner permission.
Hmm.
My part is, what did I ignore? How did I not show up? How did I not hold boundaries? How did I not be honest with myself, right? And some of
Hmm.
those things the cheating partner could have used as an excuse, but there's no excuse. It's all on them, right? But I think it's
Hmm.
important to also still look at how you show up and how you did or didn't, right? And that's again where we get to learn, where we get to grow. We get to look at those blind spots and do life different
Hmm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that new beginning and what that looks like for men who heal from betrayal.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to be redundant. It is about knowing your boundaries. It is about finding yourself. My betrayal experience happened before I became a therapist. And in some ways, maybe it was all close to around the same time, if you will, but it's also what opened me up to learning how to be a vulnerable man, right? And to how to be more in my truth. Um, Also, I think a lot of men, we struggle with how to play. Everything is
Mm,
so rigid in the masculine culture, if you will. So, yeah. So your rebirth, your new beginning, it means you get to love again. You get to love yourself, right? You get to find your self-worth and your self-esteem. You get to find your values again, or get rid of the ones that didn't work, and right, the ones that were given to us by our parents. And you get to create yourself again and back to, I said earlier, your authentic self, and maybe that part that you've been hiding, denying, and repressing most of your life.
hmm.
It's truly, if you do the work, it's truly a rebirth for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
A
yeah.
couple of podcasts ago, I had Gary Katz from our CSAT
Mm,
community on as a
mhm,
guest. And he, before becoming a therapist, he was a school teacher in an elementary school,
mm,
about fifth grade. And he talked about seeing younger boys in younger grades twirling and the excitement. Like a little boy was this, with his excitement was as likely to jump up and down and express that excitement as the little girl was. And he said, he put it before fifth grade. So that's what he taught. He said that has disappeared from boys.
squashed.
And it is much more like they're trying to be cool. I think a lot of men don't talk about have been parentified, and
Yeah, a
that
lot
is
of
going to
that.
shut down a lot of play. And yeah, that was an observable thing for him when he was a school teacher. And so when you're talking about a lot of men don't know how to play, it's been a long time since they were even allowed to.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. So I see guys all the time get that back. They get
Mm-hmm,
reconnected. I like to do a lot of regression work and help men and have men find their inner boy, their little
mm-hmm,
boy. Because so many men, I think they live their life as a little boy, right? And then when you can get a healthy relationship and you do this work, you can learn how to play again. You can learn how to be safe again.
mm-hmm,
And you can learn how to heal that little boy that in many ways gets wounded in this process too, not only
mm-hmm.
from your childhood, but from the betrayal experience.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And then I know you talk about the strength that comes through adversity. We've kind of talked about that and hit on that, how men learn to connect with emotions, are excited to connect with emotions. I've seen as well in group work with men, once they've experienced that, they don't want to give
Mm,
that up. Like they're not
yeah.
going to live a life without that anymore.
Yeah. Again, one of the things I love about this work is when someone does it, the transformation's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like, I don't know, Jackie, I can't imagine going the rest of my life and not feeling, right? Not crying during a sad movie, not laughing out loud when I'm at a comedy store, right? I cycle like flying down one of these huge hills in Utah and just having a grin on my face. I mean, feeling is how we know we're alive. And
Mm-hmm.
again, for men that don't feel or too reserved or hold it in and have become too rigid, too hurt, too shut down, I mean, do the work, guys. You can
Mm-hmm.
feel again and you can be all of that. And then you give permission to all the people in your life to do the same. It's pretty
Yeah.
powerful. It's
Yeah.
powerful work for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you talk about that the betrayal is actually a catalyst for something
Um,
different. Something has to change. You have to go inside of yourself and find what needs to change because it's not for everybody, it's not a same outcome. It all looks like A, B, C, D, because
yeah.
again, that would be caught up in the rigid structure. And so it is about going in, connecting with yourself, with your younger self, with the pain, with all of the emotions, and living as that person.
Yeah, you can get, it's easy to get stuck on something like what they did to me, right? And
Hmm.
that's easy, right? And but
And
if
it's
you stay
valid,
there 100%,
right?
but also you don't get to do the work.
Uh-huh.
It's like, all right, this happened. What do I do with this?
Right.
Right. And if we want to go back to the male stereotypes, well, we like to fix things. So fix yourself, look
Hmm.
at yourself, look at it as a chance to do something different,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
There's huge gifts in the darkness for sure in this kind of work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people don't understand that when they start this work, that there are a lot of unknown gifts that they will find if they start the work and keep going.
Yeah, and you have to get past like, well, I'm going to do it to fix the marriage, right?
Hmm.
Those deals don't always work out. You got
Right.
to do it. You
Right.
got to do it to fix yourself, that you want something
Yeah.
better. You know you deserve better.
Hmm.
And then yeah, and then go for it.
Yeah. Well, I also think that's a very common thing that men are told is that you need to fix things for others or you need to be the strength for others.
Yeah,
And
well,
it's not
being the
about them.
provider.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
I would agree.
And so to just understand, no, this has got to be for me or it won't work.
100%. That also goes into the CSAT work, right?
Uh-huh.
You can never do it for your partner.
Right.
So you bring up another good point. I'll tell my guys, like, you actually have to choose to be selfish, not in a
Hmm.
bad way, but you have to be selfish. You have to be willing to dig in. You have to be willing to hold boundaries. You have to be willing not to care what other people think. You have to feel safe. You have to just dig in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then it happens. Transformation does happen when you do that.
Right.
You know.
Yes. Well,
What
anything
else,
else?
Jackie?
I don't know.
Huh?
What else do you want to offer? Where
Oh,
should we
I
go?
feel like, man, we went many different places. One important thing I just thought
Okay.
of,
Awesome.
betrayal isn't only physical, it's emotional, right? Often
Absolutely.
stereotypes we hear women are the ones doing the emotional cheating, and I just want to say men can do that too, right? All these
Hmm.
things work both ways, and the other important thing I just want to say is betrayal's betrayal, right? There's all kinds of betrayal that can happen in a relationship. And I actually work with some people that weren't like traditionally cheated on. It lands the same way. It creates the same kind of dissidence and disconnection. So if anyone was to walk away from this podcast today with anything, it's betrayal's betrayal. And
Hmm.
it hits and it hurts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that if somebody is listening and they have not themselves experienced betrayal or betrayed, understanding that to not betray, there's work that has to be done in order to be that type of person who can show up and support and not betray. Not in a way, I
Yeah.
mean, not like refusing to self abandon. It's not a betrayal to the other person, or it doesn't have to be, because we
Yeah.
can show up and say, this is what I need to do. And that's not about you. You do you. And this is important to me. I need to pursue this, whatever that looks like. That can happen in relationships where hopefully our partner is saying, yeah, go do that. I want you to do that.
Yeah. That communication and being open.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. This work will also open up communication and authenticity and all
Yeah.
those kind of things. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think going back to emotional betrayal, I don't know why. I think for a lot of people, they have this idea that a sexual betrayal is bigger than an emotional betrayal. Like they downplay or minimize emotional affairs. But it was just an emotional affair. And when I'm working with people, that is not how that lands with them.
No, no, let me think. Wait. So one of them you give your body and that connection, which should be sacred. The other
Hmm.
one, oh no, I'm sharing my deep truths, my honest thoughts, my vulnerability, my biggest fears and concerns and wants and needs, which is also sacred.
Right.
I should be
Right.
doing it right. I don't, I think if you put those on a scale, it's balanced, but people don't see
Hmm.
it that way.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Still
Absolutely.
betrayal. Betrayal's betrayal for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
seeking something outside a committed relationship where I should be seeking those things inside the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of that's safe for sure.
And learning how to do that so that there isn't betrayal or the lack of connection, right? I think so many relationships, we neglect the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, but and every relationship's gonna have ups and right.
Sure. Yep.
Right. Like sometimes I feel more connected than others, right? But even because if you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel more connected, that doesn't give you permission to go fill that void somewhere
Right.
else.
Right.
Turn around and work on it with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Should we wrap here?
I think that's good. I
Okay,
think
I'm
we
good
did it.
with
We
it.
did a lot.
We
Yeah,
covered a lot of ground.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always find out
It's
more
kind of like we know
information.
each other or something.
I know, right? There's plenty of ways to find out more information for sure
Mm-hmm.
for people. So yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Okay, Adam, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your experiences and sharing the great work that you are doing with men. If there is somebody listening to this and they know somebody or they themselves are thinking, maybe I can do this. It's been a long time or it's just recently happened. How do they find you? How do they find your work?
Yeah, so all of my betrayal stuff is on my website, which is betrayalshrink.com. I have a what I call MBT, masculine betrayal trauma assessment can take, which will show you where your trauma is, and that's actually what betrayal does. It creates trauma. We didn't talk about that, but no time. Um, yeah, I have blogs. Actually, I just started a podcast, Jackie, and one
Oh,
day I'm
I've
going to
seen
have
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's called Men Get Cheated On Too. One day I'm going to have guests on it, and I'd love to have you. So there you
I would
go.
love to be on your
I've
podcast.
trapped you on your podcast to be on mine when I get to that point. So yeah, there's
Yeah.
just tons of resources. Of course, my book is available on
Uh-huh.
Amazon, and I'm creating some other workbooks and things. Plenty, I have plenty of content, and you can find me and reach out to me through my website.
Yeah. And your social media handle is you Trail Shrink, right?
I'm betrayal
So,
shrink, betrayal shrink.
yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can find
totally.
Adam, you can follow him, you can get acquainted with his work, following his pages, liking him, commenting.
Yeah,
And then when you're
totally.
ready, dive a little deeper.
Shoot me an email. I'll
Yeah,
respond. I respond personally to every one of them.
that's
So,
good.
which sometimes is crazy, but I do it. I think that
Mm-hmm.
important. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Jackie. Good to
Take
see
care.
you.
Good to see you too.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, listeners, just wrapping up the episode that I recorded with Adam Nisenson. And I hope that gave you something to think about. And when you're thinking of the men that you know, whether that is at work, whether that's in your neighborhood, whether that's at church, whether that's in your own family. And oftentimes I think we shortchange men. I kind of referenced that in the podcast episode. And when we do that, we are missing what actually is going on with them. I think we all benefit when we start to see men as human beings, just like the rest of us. And we're never, one of the things I was thinking about when I was talking with Adam is that concept that we're never going to not be human. And with that comes continued work, continued messiness, continued insight, continued growth, continued awareness, all of that, which is good. And I think that makes us better and safer and more open human beings, which I think is net positive, even if the pain, even though the work is painful and it's hard, it is also worth it. So if you're interested, check him out, follow him on Instagram, follow the work that he is doing, check out his podcast, Men Get Cheated On Too. And at the end of this episode, I want to remind you that your story matters. Remember, there's something meaningful in every chapter. Don't wait to share your story until it's finished. Until next time, Jackie.